where do you see yourself versus where do you want to be and how can we get you from here to here? And maybe it's even just a halfway point, but at least they know that's kind of what the next expectations are.
When you do that, then it's very clear, like, hey, I'm ready for my next promotion. It gives people a little bit of like control over their destiny versus just I show up and hope I'm going to get what I need now.
We got to take on more to make more.
All right, everybody. So we are back now. We've got some amazing things going on in this month of October. We are on track launching our strategic planning workbook for insurance agencies. You're not going to look at it and see it like it's a generic business planning workbook. It is all about insurance, your agency. Such good tools in here, from exactly how to go ahead and set your strategic plan, a timeline. I mean, it is loaded up with tons of goodies in there. So if you've always wanted a strategic plan, but your brain doesn't quite work at looking at a blank piece of paper and saying, what do I want? This is going to help you. And it's designed if you have a leadership team or you're the only person there that's making decisions. One of the things that we're passionate about as part of strategic plans is I've always been frustrated in insurance because there's not really a great career plan, right? You're in service or you're in sales. And maybe someday I will manage all my friends.
Ooh.
Sounds fun.
Sounds fun. Yay. Maybe every now and again you get the crossover. Like I started in personal, I went to commercial, right? Like you get a little bit of that, or you move to claims or you move into some other role. But the reality of the situation is, I believe that everybody, despite how many roles are in your agency, should have a career plan. And I just feel like this is a huge missing component. So people kind of get stuck in place at agencies, and it's like, you can push them a little bit, but what's your leverage? Your leverage is, okay, maybe they don't get their 3% raise, or maybe, we're so short staffed and people know it. So they're like, I'm just going to do the best I can. And they don't really realize it's probably another next level if we push them a little bit, because there's no carrot, right? So we're always asking people for more without a carrot. And I say this because I want to share how we do it at APP. So the two other people on here, Stephen and Bobby, know that when they hit a certain amount of revenue managed, they get an expanded client support team. So things like helping book flights, checking their email while they're places, but you have to get up to that certain amount. Sometimes with producers, they'll do that. Like you quote your own and then you can get access to a quoter. So we're always trying to figure out, okay, how can I scale and create more opportunity, but also understand that at the end of the day, people have to earn certain steps in the right direction, right? Because if I want my private plane, I can't do it by myself. And so if everybody's focused, like, hey, I want all these other things off my plate, then they can get hyper focused on the numbers they need to hit, which helps everybody else under the sun. So,
Correct.
Stephen, why is setting up these career goals? I mean, you had a ton of service people on your team, like far more service people than salespeople when you managed the agency you were at. And so I think in particular, like the sales role is kind of easy. Like the more I sell, the more I make.
Yeah.
Right? Pretty simple. But on the service team, I always feel like it's a very flat scenario. In fact, most agencies walk into, these people aren't even getting annual reviews.
Yeah.
So how would you go ahead setting, why is that career goal is important? What are some of the tips you used?
Let me start by saying I have a love-hate relationship with this idea. So let me just start by saying that. But I love the fact of different tiers of service. There are different levels of service with a clear step to go from here to here. Here's what you need. Here's the experience. Here's the knowledge. And here's the wow that needs to come with that, right? Because some people are happy. Like in insurance, some people are just happy. They want to show up. They want to do their job. They want to stay under the radar, meet the minimum metrics, and go home at the end of the day. They're not causing problems. They're not lighting the world on fire. And they're just okay. And I think, especially in service, we need the stability of that kind of person. But then we have those people they got a little fire, and if you light it or ignite it, then they're like, but what's next? But what's next? But what's next? So I love the idea at agencies, especially in service, of having those different levels of service of, hey, if you can rock all of this and get your problem solving skills to here, and you can be kind of nice in the process and be a little impressive, then the next step is this. And here's what that looks like. Here's the pay raise. Here's the whatever. Because I found that the higher you went in the chain, the bigger the problems were, but the less stressed the job really was, because there was other people dealing with all the little piddly day-to-day, which is fine. They enjoy it. They're learning. They're growing. But as it's going up and up and up, if we have those clear expectations, we can start somebody with no experience and be like, hey, in 3 to 5 years, you can get to here, but here's all the things you're going to need to do to get there. It also gives a point as you're doing the reviews or talking with them about their plans to be like, where do you see yourself versus where do you want to be? And how can we get you from here to here? And maybe it's even just a halfway point, but at least they know that's kind of what the next expectations are. And I think that's what we're missing a lot of times, especially with service, is what does it look like from here to here? Because everybody has the same title. We're all CSRs, we're all account managers, we're all whatever. But yet I've been doing this for 40 years and I've been doing this for 4 months and we have the same title.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't agree or just that's what I'm saying. That's why I don't agree or disagree, but I think there can be different levels of that same title.
Absolutely. And different pay grades and different vacation
Rewards
time.
and
Yeah, like if you go get a designation, if you can, I always like to say cross sell, ask for referrals, Google reviews, like things that show that you are invested in not just doing transactions, but delivering a customer experience that's like on point, right?
Yeah.
And, when you do that, then it's very clear, like, hey, I'm ready for my next promotion. It gives people a little bit of like control over their destiny versus just I show up and hope I'm going to get what I need now,
Yeah.
And so looking at, identifying career goals, Bobby, I think that there's also this like professional development. So in insurance, people have to know the coverage, they have to know the carriers, they have to know the technology, they have to know how to talk to people. And I've always thought of it like a wheel, like, okay, well, how good are you at each one of these pieces of the pie? Because sometimes people are like, they're technically awesome. But let me tell you something, culturally, they're a nightmare. Like they are tyrannical, like nobody likes them. But gosh, they know more about insurance than I do. So I got to keep them. So how do you approach trying to help people round themselves out and not just stay in the zone of like, well, here's the thing. I need to do this really well. It's like, but that's 20% of a
Yeah.
pie.
Yeah. So I think there's a few different aspects to that, right? Like, so to Stephen's point, we need those people. We need those people that are going to be stable. They're going to be, our rock stars that are happy in their role. They love that. They love doing that thing. They get a lot of joy out of it. Great. Let's foster those people. But then there's also going to be those people that are going to want to grow. And I find this kind of with the newer, more green generation, they like having a sense of accomplishment and a sense of career trajectory. So it could be just simply changing a title or giving them a little bit more responsibility, asking them to work on some different projects potentially that come up in the agency to help develop them professionally. So I think there's a lot of different types of professional development that we can wrap into that. It doesn't necessarily need to be going out and getting a designation. However, designations are valuable and they help an agency. But how can I also help move the needle for my agency? You've got these great people that are hungry. We want to test them. This gives us the ability too to test their skills, to see how are they going to work within a team. If I give them a special project to work on, are they going to meet the timeline? Are they going to do a great job without asking for a lot of questions? So I think there's a lot of different ways that we can build people's professional skills and development from within the organization, but also allowing them to partake in things outside the organization are going to be important too, because I forget sometimes, even myself, that sometimes they've never seen it done another way. This may
Right.
be the very first agency that they've ever worked in. And so by sending them out for some professional development, they can bring back some tools and some things that might be super exciting that will help move your agency forward. So I think knowing what those professional development skills are that we need in their role too. So we have to analyze that. I'm not going to go out and get a designation on something that isn't related to my field. Right.
Mhm.
So, I'm not going to go get a child development course. And how does that relate to my insurance career? But identifying those things really clearly, like what are some short-term goals? What are some short-term wins that we can get? what long term am I looking to do? And we need to be checking in on those goals regularly because that could change over time. So making sure that we do that. And then are they interested in leadership? Are they interested in advancement? I think there's two sides to that coin. There's those people that want to move up. And then I think there's also those people that become stagnant in their role and they get a lot of expectations about, I should make more because I've been here and I have longevity, but they're not taking on more.
Correct.
So we have to, in order to
They're
make
not that
more, we-
proficient in what they're doing currently or using technology, right? Like it's just a time over attention.
Yeah, we got to take on more to make more, right? I think in agencies, we don't do a great job of setting those expectations. So Kelly, you had mentioned earlier, like, pay bands, right? Like, I know that in order for me to make more, I have to do X, Y, Z. I can't always sit in this desk. But if I'm happy always sitting in this desk, knowing that this is what I'm going to make, and maybe I'll have some other opportunities here and there.
I think that's a really smart. And, as far as career plans go, I think people get a little messy about titles, right? Like it could just be account manager level 1. It could even just get internal. It doesn't have to be external. It doesn't have to be a huge scenario. But I do think it's good to have it published and let people know how to go there. And if somebody's in a season of their life where maybe getting life licensed is in their cards, maybe they've got young children at home, well, they know that, hey, in 3 years, I can go do this. Or things happen in people's worlds. Like it's always an opportunity to grow and develop. And I just want to make a shameless plug for our leadership training course too. So if maybe there's somebody who does want leadership, a leadership role, a management role, have them take in our agency school, the leadership course. It's there because we are welcoming a lot of new leaders in and might be great at their job. But hey, listen, if I'm a football player, doesn't mean I know how to coach the whole team. Means I know how to do my job on the field. And I think that giving people those tools is so, so critical. Stephen, what would you say as far as somebody wants to start building this career plan, right? They're like, this is cool. My team needs this. I want to give them something to work towards versus, because you guys have all been there, right? You get the phone call. So-and-so just came in looking for more money. Right?
Oh,
Like it happens all the time. I'm like, what'd they say? Like, well, they told me they need to make more money because their husband lost overtime or whatever. And I'm like, what does that have to do with your job? But we all feel bad or we don't know how to handle it. So Stephen, if you wanted to publicize this, like where would you start potentially building this?
let's find our job descriptions. And is it clearly defined what the role looks like? And is there metrics that are trackable so that they know what they should be looking at? And is it too generic to the point where we're using the same thing for every skill level? Right. And if it is, then can we break that into different roles and responsibilities so we can clearly define who should really be responsible for what and evaluate the pay ranges? Right. I love, love, love virtual assistants. You can never tell me that I can't have them because I will fight you in a parking lot with big jewelry on to keep them.
Big jewelry.
With big jewelry. I'm going to get my big jewelry out today. But if we think about it, there's different levels of pay for different skill sets. And we need to make that kind of clear to the team. But when everybody does everything, nobody knows what's important or what the priorities of their role are. So taking a step back, identifying clear job descriptions with metrics, and are we really defining the role? And do those roles make sense? And is it clear what each person could be doing in that role?
What I find a lot when I work with agencies is that we're not checking in with our people. We don't even know what their career plan is. We don't know what their progression is. Nobody's having one-on-one meetings. They're not having group like there's no check-ins happening. It's like, here, come sit down, do this job. And then we just leave you kind of out there floating in the wind.
Nobody's got time.
Yeah.
Everyone's so busy. What I would tell everybody, if you're looking for different tiers, maybe do 3 tiers to start with, right? And I always like to say they have to be there a certain amount of time, right? To hit like a certain tier. They have to, here's some ideas to throw out there, a designation that's in their field, cross-selling a certain amount, having a certain number of metrics, right? Whether that's retention or renewal review calls at a certain percentage or coverage increases. Then I would also say maybe a special project, like Bobby said. It doesn't have to be all these, right? It could be like 3 of these things that you have to do You have to be in good standing. I would always put that on there. You don't want somebody who's not doing it to then go ahead and, you know, not be there. And then in exchange for that, maybe you do get higher end clients, right? Like that whole trade-off scenario where there's a large agency right now that I'm talking to, and they keep their smaller clients in like a pool, right? Like just
Yeah.
take a certain premium. It's kind of like round robin. Well, maybe you would graduate up to having a book of a little bit of a higher end clientele. Again, following agency protocol, audits. I would also say like you have to successfully be audited. You have to go ahead and, be on track with some form of professional development. So any of those things I think you guys can come up with. Again, it doesn't have to be all of them. Maybe just start with like you have to hit 3 of these objectives and then lay it out there very clearly. Maybe it's a bit more vacation time, bigger pay, access to a bigger bonus. Make it intense enough for people to want to go do it. And also just remember, if somebody maybe isn't in this phase, there's a difference. Like there's people who aren't in a phase of their life to go ahead potentially and take on that next step. But there's also people who just don't want to do it. So the ones that just don't want to do it, people tell you who they are. You have to listen. And then the ones that maybe are in a phase, like they've got young kids, it's just hard for them to focus. To have those one-on-ones with them, they might say, yeah, I totally want to do it. I just need to get my kid in full-time school. Like once that happens, my life's just a million times better.
Well, and I was also going to say, sometimes you got those super hungry people and they want to move forward. So we have to be really good too about being able to help them set expectations and pump the brakes a little bit too. Like, I really need you to be an expert at what I'm asking you to do. And then we have to clearly communicate when a role is available. Because they'll get the expectation, well, you gave me all these goals and I hit all these metrics. And now I just expect this transition to happen. And so we want to make sure that we're very, very, very clear in our communication that you have to get to this level. And then we will have further discussions and communications when that role becomes available. Is that person then really, truly the right fit? Because things could change.
Yeah, and I think it's good too, when you sit down and do your strategic planning guide, you'll be thinking about next year what new roles may exist, right? Maybe your agency is big enough where you have a marketing, like a quoter. Maybe your agency is big enough where you need someone that just deals with claims, or maybe it's a scenario where there's a team lead role that's going to appear. So I think there's like the 2 different tracks of, hey, I don't need a role open to be like level 1, level 2, level 3 account manager. But in order to take like that next step, there does have to be an open position available. And so I always think like with a strategic plan, there's always I'd say like every agency probably had somebody that's slightly in the wrong role. If we were a little bit bigger, they would just be great at just quoting, but not talking to people.
Yeah.
Or they would be great as being a trainer, but not, because they're slow and patient, but they're not necessarily like able to pump the workout super fast, Or, what, they'd be great if I could get big enough, they could just float between people's desks. And so we're not so jammed up, maybe part trainer. So your strategic plan is also critical, I think, to say, as we grow, what does this look like? And the other thing that I think we can all agree, we walk into agencies, we see so many agencies that desperately need at least a team lead to like them. Everything's coming to the owner or the leader and there is no buffer. And they've got 12 people looking at them and the owner's trying to produce these larger accounts or keep them happy and wearing all these hats. And I think when you really look at it as you develop your plan, you might be like, we need to develop some leadership here. And that doesn't have to be a manager. I think the titles get messy. Start with just a team lead. Hey, everybody goes to them before they come to me. Like that could be just a huge step in the right direction. So if you are sitting there and you're like, geez, Louise, this is awesome. I really need a strategic plan. Head to our website, head to the show notes. Strategic plan on sale through the month of October. If you catch this later on, don't worry. We're still going to do promos till the end of the year to get every agency in America a bomb strategic plan that includes career plans for each person. So Bobby, Stephen, thank you so much for participating today. And the next one we're going to talk a little bit about is how to get that winning team. Because I'm going to tell you something, a good team makes the entire insurance life 10 times easier. A crappy team will make you want to take that phone call and sell your agency.
Very true.
All right, everybody. We'll see you in the next podcast.